The final season of Picard is here, and I just sunk my teeth into the premiere episode here with my coffee this morning. And I gotta say, it's another welcome step back into the nostalgia of the next generation. And this season, more than any other, I've been told and I've read and I've seen previews of. And given the fact that if we look at the entirety of the poster over here, it's all of the next generation cast coming back and some other faces as well, which we've seen in previous seasons of Picard. Um, yeah, we're diving in. This is going to be my review and thoughts on the first episode. If you've never watched any of my stuff before, I don't do spoiler free, so it's the whole episode. So if you want spoiler free, you will need to go elsewhere because you're not going to find it here. So if you haven't watched the episode, go away, come back later. But if you have seen it, welcome. Let's dive in. Like, subscribe, hit that bell icon if you haven't already done so. Let me get into my show notes and go. So right off the bat, we have a different opening sequence than the previous seasons, and this is literally a throwback to the next generation. We've got the opening here, and then we've got the Fallout song in the background while the camera gives us this sweeping shot of space and a vessel hanging in the middle of a nebula while another one swoops in, and then we get this interior sequence of shots inside the ship with the screen open, and we hear Jean-Luc Picard narrating an encounter with the Borg on her journal entry, and then boom, we're face to face with Dr. Crusher herself. And this is the first of the Next Generation cast to make their appearance in this final season of Star Trek Picard. Now, this scene starts off with some intensity as we realize that she's the one in charge of the vessel that was sitting there, and this other one that's coming in is doing some sort of an unauthorized docking sequence, and she starts sealing off doors. We hear another person on the ship who gets locked behind one of the doors yelling at her, and the name of the ship appears to be Elios, and she's diverting all the power to the warp drive to try to get us the hell out of here. Doesn't work, of course, because we have to have a gunfight, and we get these strange creatures who I'm not familiar with, and they're on the ship coming after her, but she shows that she's no slouch. And there is a gunfight here. She's shot, wounded, realizes she's not going to be able to get out in time as more ships are approaching. So she sends out an emergency message on a coded frequency, and guess who the recipient is? Welcome to season 3. Um, the next scene we get here is Picard back with Laris, and they're picking up where season 2 left off. They're obviously involved romantically, and they're preparing to go somewhere. She's got a diplomatic trip that she needs to attend to, and he's going to be going along with her for some much-needed R&R. Mentions maybe doing his memoir. He's looking around at all the memorabilia in his office and talking about memories and everything else, but then also mentioning that he's ready for the next adventure. But I think everything about this sequence is pretty much establishing he's an elderly gentleman, and all of these memories and all this memorabilia is just reminding him of the time before. And they have some dialogue here about, older gentlemen look towards the past to define who they were. Um, and the next scene is him at a desk. It's nighttime. There's storming happening. And this is the one we saw a bunch of teasers of during the lead up to season 3, which is he starts hearing an alert beeping from someone and he hunts it down and eventually finds this 20-year-old badge, this comm badge. And it's the message from Dr. Crusher, and she tells him, trust no one from Starfleet, mentions something called Hellbird, which comes into play later on. But this is obviously the next adventure for Picard, and it's a tie-in to the conversation about the past, because he's obviously going to be going back into the past to meet with Crusher and things there. And the next sequence, though, is we got Riker sipping on some whiskey in a bar somewhere with blues music playing in the background, and I had to ask myself a very important question. Is it wrong that I feel pulsing in my loins every time Riker is on screen? I'm a straight white guy, but Riker is just. But I love this shot as we find him sipping a drink in a bar somewhere with that blues music, and Picard's with him. And turns out that Picard came to him because he has nowhere else to turn. And this is when they decipher that Hellbird refers to a computer virus that hit the Enterprise while Picard was incapacitated as Locutus, and they find out that the coordinates actually point to somewhere else entirely, and that's when we discover this is the location that Crusher's sending them to. There's another mystery that's got to be solved here, though, because it says here that 20 years ago, Dr. Crusher cut everyone off, and they discussed that in this bar sequence. The why of it. Neither of them know why. But as they walk out of the bar, we realize that there's a man here who's paying far too much attention to them, which is, I'm assuming, the reason she told them not to trust Starfleet. But the next sequence is Raffi, and I'm not sure. This has got to be tied into something that's going to be playing out later on in the show, because whatever Raffi's up to is different. It's on a different planet. She's doing something different than what Picard and Riker are up to. She is pretending to be someone, druggie addict, and she's trying to get information from this guy about something called the Red Lady. And then there's this sequence of shots that play out through the episode where she, talks to her handler. Turns out she's working for Starfleet Intelligence, looking for a stolen weapon. She ends up getting to this planet as this weapon is used, and it looks like some sort of crazy dimension door device, which basically takes this entire building and puts a hole underneath it, sucks it through the hole, and then the hole opens up in the sky and dumps it all out in pieces. So it's a huge destructive thing. And it happens during the Frontier Day celebrations. And so she's hunting down some sort of crazy weapon, which I'm assuming is going to tie into everything that's going on with Riker and Picard. But there's not a lot of Raffi in this. It's a sequence of shots that are spread out throughout the episode. So she's on this mission to find some sort of a stolen weapon. And I can only assume that that weapon is going to tie into what's going on with Crusher and all this other stuff. So, getting back to my show notes here, um, it turns out Riker has this plan where he and Picard are going to pretend to do a surprise inspection on Riker's old command, the Titan, which also happens to be where Seven of Nine is stationed as first officer. And everything they're doing here is a ruse because they need to convince the captain of the ship to go off course to check out some coordinates outside of Federation space, because that's where Crusher is. So I just was like, good luck with that, boys. Um, the sequence where they get to the bridge of the Titan and we meet Geordi LaForge's daughter, and she's the nav pilot here. I thought this was pretty cool, and if I'm not mistaken, that's actually LeVar Burton's actual daughter playing the part of Geordi LaForge's daughter in the show, which I thought was a really cool little throwback and more nostalgia for people. But it's also cool to show the family ties and the friendships that they all have. It's really cool here. But we do finally get to meet Captain Shaw, the captain of this vessel, and this guy is an uptight a-hole who has no respect for Riker Picard. He basically views them as freewheeling cowboys who who just blew shit up all the time. And he's a very structured officer who follows the rules to the letter of the law. And as they're going through this dinner sequence where they're trying to convince him to take the ship off course, he's just like, nope, not going to happen. Request denied. And he goes off to bed and leaves them going, well, crap, that plan didn't work. But Seven of Nine isn't buying any of it and demands to know what they're really up to. And it turns out that on a whim, she disobeyed Captain Shaw while he's off in his quarters sleeping and took the ship to where Riker and Picard wanted to go, the edge of Federation space. They steal a shuttle and off they go, where they meet Beverly in a med cocoon and a strange man who claims to be her son, having put her in the med cocoon. Um, I'm assuming this is why she disappeared 20 years ago. I'm assuming that's an answer we're going to be given later on in the show. But as they're realizing who this guy is, he gives this, rambling account of all these different systems they've been trying to escape some strangers from, and they have different faces, he says. And as they're talking with him, he talks about how you led him straight to us. And as the episode fades to black, we get this strange ship coming out of the nebula and looming over the vessel that they're on. And I don't know who this is. I mean, they've made reference to the Borg a couple of times in this episode. Is this the Borg? I don't know. It's just one ship. There's too many questions. This is apparently her son. Uh, is this why she disappeared for 20 years? There's a lot of, for as far as first episodes go, there's not a lot of tie into anything that's come before. So this is definitely kind of a standalone season. We can definitely feel that here. We know from teasers and posters and everything else that we're getting the whole crew of the Next Generation together. So whatever's going to be going down in this season is going to bring them all together at some point. But right now we're left with an opening episode that does what every opening episode of a show should do. Opens up introducing us to characters and leaves us with a lot of questions and not any answers, because they want you to tune into the next episode, which I will be doing, and happily so, because for me, I view Star Trek just like I do Star Wars. There's no such thing as bad Star Wars or bad Star Trek. Some Star Trek and some Star Wars is better than others, but it's all good. It's all fun. I love it. I'm a fan for life. And anybody who wants to come in here and claim that this is bad, ruining Star Trek, get out of here. If you don't want to watch it, don't watch it. But for those of you who do want to watch it, episode 2 next week, and I will be reviewing it here. So hopefully you'll stick around and tune in for more. If you like this, don't forget to like, subscribe, hit that bell icon if you haven't already done so. Support in all the ways you can: super chat, super thanks, super stickers, memberships, Patreon page. There's a Discord. Links are down there. I'm in. I'm in for the ride. But I've loved the first 2 seasons of this, so I can't wait to see where they're going to go. And this season, I think, is going to be one of the better ones because even though it is the final season, we're getting the cast back together, we're getting the crew, we're getting the old gang back together, and I can't wait to see where they go. So until next week, everybody, stay safe. Happy journeys.